Breaking the wall of mindless schools. How educational research can contribute to successful and joyful learning. Manfred Prenzel, Technische Universität München.
When the wall came down, I always had an eye on the reports of the events in Berlin.
Sehr geehrter Herr Bundespräsident Wulff, Mr. President Le Terme, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, it's a pleasure for me having the opportunity to contribute to that fantastic conference here. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for the perfect organization. I'm just wondering how you all feel after 3 hours of presentation, input from very different disciplines, no opportunity to move your legs or to participate in face-to-face discussions. So maybe you feel like in school. So I just want to invite you to relax for a moment. So please sit back on your chair, relax, and close your eyes. I just want to stimulate your mind a bit. I want you to think of a personal object. The personal object I want you to think of is your watch. So please try to imagine your watch in your mind, and let's go through some details of your watch. What about the clock face of your watch? What color does the clock face have? And how would you name this color? Now, let's think about the dial. Are there 60 minutes indicated? Or 12 hours? Or quarters? What about the numerals? Are there 12 numerals? Or 4 or none? What is the shape of the numerals? Are these Romanic numerals? Or Hindu-Arabic numerals? We could go on and on, but just open your eyes and take a look on your watch and confront your imagination with the reality. You don't have to worry if you had some problems to represent your watch. I'm sure there's only a small number of experts here in the room that is able to imagine the mentioned details of their personal watches. The astonishing thing is that everybody is taking looks on his watch a day several times. But it's quite difficult to remember what the details are. And some time ago you bought your watch and thought about the specifics of the watch and you compared it with other watches. What the watch exercise tells us, we may look 1,000 times on certain objects, but in the end, we will not have learned anything. First of all, already, it's not easy to describe a clock face, for example, in a specialized language or colors. We need terms and we need concepts to order and to describe and to remember details. Another consequence, whether and what we see and learn depends from our perspectives, from our questions, from our interests. Of course, our interest when we look on our watch is different. We want to know how late it is. But we can also try to stimulate and to discover interesting and important details. Besides, what would have happened if I had asked you to explain how your watch works? Would you have been able to mention at least a principle or principles how to scale time? So what you see, learning is quite difficult, and we need help from outside to classify, to understand the world around us. We even need education to explore our environments. So education is necessary, and the school is the most important institution to provide education to everyone. The school is an institution designed to guide the learning of our children systematically, to introduce them in our culture and society, and to prepare them for the challenges of the future. The function of a school, however, is not only to support the acquisition of knowledge, but also, or maybe primarily, the development of the young personality. Schools prepare for participation in society. Schools create the basis for learning across the lifespan. Schools help to get access to objects, to themes, issues, to experiences young people normally would not have access to in their personal environments, depending on their family backgrounds, for example. Schools try hard to help students to focus up on issues at hand. So schools, as you can see in the Orbis Pictus from Comenius, try to exclude the world outside in order to help students to focus on issues at hand. You can also see the walls as some kind of conditions that could foster the collaboration, the development of a learning community. But on the other side, high walls carry the risk to exclude real life from schools, to create artificial settings for learning, and also maybe making schools quite different and intransparent to look on from outside. Schools today still give the impression that they are dominated by walls. There are, however, several attempts to break these walls, what could mean first to have a look on the processes and outcomes of schools. When students are leaving school after several years, are they prepared for life, for the challenges of a knowledge society, for the future? Questions like that guided several international comparisons, like the OECD program for international student assessment, PISA. The findings of the PISA assessment in 2000 were very sobering for Germany. Germany performed very low, below the OECD average. Even more problematic have been the large proportions of very low-performing students and the strong relationships between social background and performance. PISA caused a lot of efforts to improve our schools. I would like to show you some findings we received in a number of studies linked to PISA. In an extension of PISA 2003, we tried to analyze how much students in Germany are learning during the course of 1 year of schooling. So we had the opportunity to extend the international sample. We could assess 2 complete classrooms in all participating schools to 2 points of time, first at the end of grade 9 and then again at the end of grade 10. We used different kinds of tests, curriculum-oriented as well as literacy-oriented items, and we used scaling method that allowed to locate the results on one scale. The scatter plot shows what our students did learn in the course of 1 year schooling in mathematics. The points represent about 6,000 students showing the performance in grade 9 and grade 10 on the PISA scale. On average, the students at grade 10 performed 25 points higher on the PISA scale. But according to the diagonal line here, the diagonal line here represents no change. Above the line are about 58% of students who improved their mathematic performance significantly. 42% of the students did not. So you can ask, what did the students do? Were they daydreaming? No, they weren't. They worked very hard. They tried to understand, but also they were quite successful. They mastered the classwork and the teacher made tests, and at the end they performed the school successfully. We could also aggregate these findings on the classroom levels, and we find a number of classes that performed better on average after 1 year of schooling, and that's quite interesting for us to go into details about differences between kinds of instructions. My interpretation of these findings is as follows. Learning in most of our classrooms is strongly related to the high-stakes teacher-made assessments and marks, and that produces a kind of short-term learning to the test. It leads to a superficial success. Of course, everybody is happy, parents and the students and the teachers, that there is a progress. But it's a progress on a very superficial level. Assessments like PISA try to assess at the end of 1 year of schooling, at the end of a school phase, and see what is sustainable knowledge that has been kept over a certain period of time. What I show you here now is finding a similar approach, what students did learn in a year of physics, also in the 9th grade. Here you see a scatter plot of 50 classrooms. And we again see that there are some classrooms that perform better at the end of the year, what we would expect. But what you see here is a scatter plot showing the development of the interest. During the course of 1 year of schooling, most of the students lost interest. They improved the understanding, but they are not longer interested in physics. So what does it mean? They will not tend to select advanced science courses. They will not decide to engage in a profession linked to science. And we now have a number of data and evidence that also highly talented students in mathematics and science turn away from the sciences. So at the moment, we see that not only in the German classrooms, but also in many other countries, the learning is focused on cognitive understanding, cognitive performance, but not on the development of interest and motive. And that's very important in schools to improve also the motivations to go on learning in these different disciplines. The just mentioned study on the development of competence and interest in physics was a video study. That means we recorded a number of lessons in these classrooms. Our question was, what makes a difference with respect to the development of interest and understanding? So in this video analysis, we try to identify patterns of teaching that support higher order thinking as well as the development of interest. And what we did find were at least 3 relevant factors. First factor can be named goal orientation and coherence of the lessons. We found, for example, that teachers spend on average only 1 minute of the lesson for the introduction, for exposing the goal, for structuring the way to proceed. Motivation and understanding are supported by an exposition of the problem at hand that shows the relevance and gives an idea of ways to tackle the problem. The second point, process-oriented teaching. The typical classroom dialogue is dominated by teacher talk, by short questions, short answers, by very narrow focused discussions. There is a small number of teachers posing questions that demand higher order learning activities. There are teachers who use opportunities to provide constructive feedback that, again, makes a difference. And the quality experiments, for example. There's only a small number of teachers who stimulate their students to model theoretical relationships and to design their experiment. That inquiry-based science teaching approach also makes a difference. In the end, we find here some examples of joyful and mindful teaching and learning. Let me finish with 3 consequences. I think we need more awareness also on a political level for multidimensional objectives and outcomes, not only cognition but also motivation. And the second point, we have to improve our teacher training and also our professional development. Thank you very much.